I haven't checked it out.
Oh, here we go. Hey, welcome everybody. This is Theo and this is Derek. We
Good
are
to have y'all.
yes it is, and we're having a little brief discussion before we were actually going to come on the show, and we just decided to do a topic off the cuff, so to speak. So I thought it was pretty interesting. I actually watched the two Lord of the Rings uh, episodes from Amazon over the weekend, and we started talking about it because I have not read Lord of the Rings. That was not my cup of tea for literary reading, but I believe Derek, you did,
Most definitely. Oh,
and we started
and
talking about it, and then we
hmm
started talking a little bit about our usual topic, which is Wheel of Time,
Yep.
and we're having a good discussion. So I was like, you know what? Let's just post this live, and it's just going to be our show today.
Sounds
So
good to me.
there's going to be obviously Wheel of Time spoilers.
hmm
There's going to be Lord of the Rings spoilers, probably from Derek's literary perspective, and then my show
hmm
perspective. So if you
Right.
haven't watched the show, uh, well, I'll do my best to not spoil stuff. Um, cool. So I'll give people a second to decide whether they want to watch. Hopefully you do. Like and subscribe, of course.
That's
But
right. Please
let's
like
take it
and
away.
subscribe. And with that out of the way, let's get to the meat and potatoes.
So our discussion was interesting because I'm just gonna hit up with a big spoiler in the beginning. Yes, you're gonna from the show, Lord of the Rings, show. It is a prequel, so it's before any of the movies. Technically speaking, it's
Before the Hobbits, even
before the
right?
Hobbits. Yep, before the Hobbits.
Like by 1,000 years or something like
Yeah,
that.
like I think they said 1 or 2,000 years, maybe even more.
Wow.
So
Wow.
this is like ancient history, so to speak.
Okay.
There's only been 2 episodes, so I will save my judgment as always of the rating until the end of the season, because it's in depth.
Mm.
As Robert Jordan writes, as did Tolkien, as is this show. So there's a plethora of characters, and it jumps
Ah,
around a
yes.
lot. So to me, even though 95-ish% of the characters are all new, it was actually hard for me to follow every storyline
Mm.
because it was like rapid fire, and as soon as you get into one, poof, it went to a different arc. Now, hopefully, all those arcs kind of come together, which
Okay.
is what I think it's starting to go towards. But that's where the episode ended. So, we'll see. Um, so when I say 95%, the one character that people will recognize is Sauron. He is in it. Spoiler, not really, because I think that was in the trailer. So,
So let me just say real quick. So
mm-hmm.
Sauron, we know him from the Lord of the Rings trilogy as the big bad at the beginning that the guy from the Matrix, Agent Smith, had to fight.
Yep.
Uh, what's his name? Hugo. Well,
He
anyhow,
goes,
I'm not.
yep.
It's not gonna come to me.
No.
So he, at that point, had this big old like crab suit of armor on, right? And he appeared to be well larger than the people that were fighting him. And
This is
these
Sauron. This is Sauron.
this is Sauron,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know, 12 feet, 15 feet tall, maybe larger.
Yeah, it's
Pretty big, right?
yeah,
That
troll
seems
like.
right, troll-like, not human-like. And his hand gets severed, and his body is destroyed at that point. And
Mm-hmm.
then for the rest of the series, we see him as this gigantic eyeball that's able to see into your inner soul with those desires and whatever, or your fears or whatever it is. So, and he can track you anywhere you are, pretty much. So, what's going on with that? That seems like some manifested evil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, without, we're not going to be talking about um, Tolkien's original uh, source material where he kind of beefed out or filled out, gave us more substance for the original storyline. We're not going to use that. The Silmarillion, I believe it's called. Instead, we're just going to look at the show's perspective, which Theo's going to be the expert today.
Expert.
So,
All right, I've only watched them once, so
so
okay.
yeah, yeah. Well, on the one topic though, there's not really much
True,
that you
true,
need to.
true. Not much
So,
else.
so here's where the story takes a twist. So, did Sauron start out as some untangible manifestation of like energy or some kind of shadowy demon emerging from hell, or what do we find out in the show?
But in the show, he's a wizard
He's a wizard, so you're implying he's a wizard.
of human stature.
Ah, so he's
We're
so
assuming.
he's like so he's just like he's a guy.
Yes, ish. Now I say
That's
ish.
interesting.
'Cause
Like
I-
he's not like 20 feet tall.
So here's the kicker.
Hmm.
You see Morgoth, like his boss, so to speak, once, right? Maybe twice in like a couple cutscenes. Sauron, you only see, I believe, if I'm getting all the characterization correctly, like once,
Hmm.
and then it's like a story.
But from what you see of him, he just looks like a typical kind of no, I'm not,
As,
typical dude, right?
as far as I can tell, yes. Now you got to remember, this is. Think of this as like a prequel to a prequel to a prequel.
Oh, for sure, because
So
if
you
I
have-
understand right, they're gonna eventually make the rings within this series.
I mean, it would make sense because it's the Rings of Power. It's the
Yeah.
subtitles. I would assume so.
But they're not there yet.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Lord of the Rings, got the originals. If you want to say the Hobbit series is a prequel, this would be a prequel, like as in like the Rings of Power. And then technically they're referencing even more ancient history. So this battle with Morgoth and Sauron and the elves and all the other elves, really, it's just really just the elves, happened. They say in a elvish lifespan.
Oh wow!
Not that.
What does that even
Not
mean?
even that long ago.
Oh, I see. So not that long.
Which
But
is like
that-
what?
that
Which
could
is
still be
like
thousands.
yeah, I
of
was gonna say
years,
which is
right?
like 1,000 years plus for like an elf, right? So
Well, I'm not an expert on that, but I'm pretty sure Tolkien elves do not die of natural causes.
no.
Like maybe they on average, let's say, live 3,000 years, but that's only because probability and accidents. You know,
Right.
you live long enough, you're gonna fall off a ladder and break your neck. It's just how things
How
go.
it is. So
Yeah.
from that perspective, I don't remember the actual dates, but
Sure.
this was like ongoing storyline. So when you see him, it's also from that like Tony Braxton angle, where she's like, I hate being 5 foot, so I'm going to kind of angle it up to make myself look taller.
Oh, I got you.
So it's from a distance, and you're down a little bit. So it's tough to say how tall he really is because there's not really anybody around him.
I got you, but they didn't make him look like he's.
I don't think so. There, like I said, there wasn't. I'm not gonna give it a lot away because it's kind of cool scene, but yes, there wasn't that much there. So tough to go off of. But we'll say for the first 2 episodes, he was a human wizard working for Morgoth that I'm assuming just wanted to be a general and have immense powers.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
So, from the little I know here, the Lord of the Rings trilogy took place in the Third Age,
Mm-hmm.
which that's interesting because,
This is the
The Wheel of-
second age.
okay, that's interesting. I was gonna say, according to this material, which might not be in line with the show, and I'm trying really not to dip into this too much, but the first age was that fight with the elves that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So the show you're saying takes place in the second age. So interesting side note here. Do you want to know what age the Wheel of Time proper series takes place in? In the original book series?
was 3, wasn't it?
It is. It is the third
Yeah.
age.
Interesting,
And
right?
so that would make the War of Power in the Wheel of Time the second age,
Mm-hmm.
which is where this show is taking place. So it's an interesting little thing that I would say Robert Jordan probably borrowed, but I understand there is a larger picture of ages being counted and enumerated, which goes into Greek mythology and also Eastern mythology. So he could have found this in a number of ways,
Yep,
but interesting parallel, right?
correct. So
So,
the other parallel would be if Sauron started as human. Again,
mm,
it's a human-esque. Who
right,
knows? Because legends can change. And again, we're not getting into the source Tolkien material where he said he was like a godlike creature or whatever.
right,
So, we'll throw that away. You can't, but we're gonna go from the show's perspective.
sure.
And obviously, the two shows are both produced by Amazon, so
Mm,
liberties
that's
have been
right.
taken with both literary adaptations to
Good point.
screen.
Good
So it
point.
makes sense. They kind of went along, and because we already know Robert Jordan borrowed from Tolkien,
Sure.
I mean, yes, there's going to be some similarities, or at least hopeful similarities in the show, which I think there are thus far, and it would make sense from the story perspective as well.
Most
So,
definitely.
could the Dark One at one point have started as a human-esque creature?
Yes,
Or
that's an
being, I
interesting
guess. I mean,
question.
creature may not be a good word, but
No,
being.
yeah. Well, yeah, let's narrow it down. Let's be really specific. Let's be bold. Did the Dark One start out as a man, as a human?
Hmm.
Will be equal opportunity here. A woman.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be the real main topic. So if you came for Lord of the Rings, stay for Wheel of Time.
Right?
Uh, so why, where did we come up with this? Well, let me remind our audience that we've had a discussion of what what could have happened after the book series, like in short order. Well, at that point, it appears that in some kind of way, spoiler, Rand has the Dark One as some kind of prisoner. And we hypothesized that, well, gee, it might be possible for this amalgamation of Rand and the Dark One, Shy Rand, as it were. It might be possible for this guy to eventually become all powerful in some kind of way again and do something like, oh, I need to start over and wipe the slate clean, so to speak, in a really horrific way, like a global flood kind of situation. Or it could be that he's a nice guy, he's benevolent, but then maybe he passes away in some kind of fashion and this darkness comes back through that. So in that way, the dark would could come back as really being a human first. So the question really is then, what do you think? Was the Dark One actually a human being running around in a previous age, somehow tapping into some ridiculous power source? And I don't mean to charge your lithium batteries. I mean a controllable,
Tapped into the one power.
right, or in this case, the true source, right? Because maybe they weren't divided yet,
Right?
for example. Maybe it was all just one thing. Maybe it had a different name even. So maybe it was just the oneness or, whatever.
Or had no
So,
name.
or had no name at all. And maybe that's why they refer to things in the series like the void and stuff. Maybe those are remnants of memories of how it used to be. Well, whatever the case, this gentleman or woman tapped into the ability to literally manipulate the fabric of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not just that, but able to offer people things. And if they accept the offers, he's able to manipulate people, their very senses, their very emotions. So, what do you think, Theo? What it, could this be that the Dark One really is some kind of primordial essence that the series is dealing with, which so many Wheel of Time fans defend that point and say, oh, the Dark One was just a prop for the series. He was one-dimensional and had no structure. Or do you stand ground with the idea, excuse me, do you stand ground with the idea that the Dark One really was the antagonist of the story, and he has a lot of actual structure to the character? You just really have to pay attention. So I'll let you go from here.
All right. So obviously, Derek brought up both modes of thought. Primordial being that was just always around, and you have evil, and then you have to have good, and then you have to have a battle, and then good prevails. With a quote, yeah, because you got the little glimpse, and they could just continue on, and there's your cycle. Right. There you go. Good versus evil. Good absorbs evil. Possibly back and forth, and it just starts all over again.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
That'd be quick, dirty. I would hope that with the character development that Robert Jordan put into his books and the effort he put in, he wouldn't just make it, I'm going to be lazy and just write, here's a bad dude, here's a good guy, and that's it.
I like that. I like this angle that you're building.
So, what I can reference in human culture is alchemy, right? People try to turn like water into wine, try to turn some innate material into gold, right? The lead into gold. Were they successful? No. But why? Here's the kicker, Derek. Why did people for centuries keep trying?
It's an interesting question. What do you propose?
I think it happened through a different means. And I'm not being no flat earther BS, that kind of stuff. But
no, go on.
There's always like some part of mythology is true and it just gets blown out of proportion. I'm not saying literally they threw some lead into some like acid and then all of a sudden poof, we got gold. No, I'm not saying that, because you can't have one without, you can't do that kind of stuff. But we also can't recreate Roman concrete.
For whatever reason, like we're
we
either
missing
we don't
something.
know the recipe, we don't know the order that they did things in, or we're just straight up missing an ingredient.
Yep.
Whatever it is.
So I look at that and say there's stuff that even today's modern society can't make sense of from
for sure
olden times. So yes, everyone has to have science, and that concrete's science, 100%. We just don't understand it. Maybe potentially never be able to recreate it. Maybe it happened to be it's volcanic ash that probably is what makes it like so robustly strong. But does that mean it just had to come from an eruption of a specific volcano in a specific area that had a specific breakdown of chemicals? Who knows? So that being said, we still make concrete today, right?
Yeah.
It's just not as good. It's just
some kind of version of it, yeah.
It's just not as good as the ancient ones, ironically. So who's to say that with alchemy, something didn't happen even way before that they were able to do it?
So check this out, even that perception. So if they had some kind of, listen to this. This is not mystical, but this is like a plausible kind of thing, right? So we know that they worked with lead, right, for plumbing?
Yep, 100%.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So we know
to their detriment.
We know, yes, but we know where they're mining it, etc. And they're mining gold. It may have been that either there used to be a gold mine and it's depleted and all that's left is lead, and there's a story that they used to get gold out of this mine somehow.
Or the other way around.
They
used to get lead, and then as they dug deeper, oh man, it changed to gold.
Changed into gold, and we used to know how to change lead into gold, and now we can't. that's plausible to me, and etc. I'm just, for the very skeptical people out there, I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
paint a broad picture here.
It's
So, or in the case of what was the water into wine,
mm-hmm.
there there is a known process of using recycling a wine jar or jug back in the day, like a big, like think of more like a barrel,
A
and
vat.
this
Yeah.
kind of sludge builds up on the rim,
Mm-hmm.
and if you pour water in there, shake it up right quick, you pour that out, you have what they call new wine,
Yep.
which I guess kind of sucks. It's not really the good stuff, but it will get you tipsy, right? So if that's generally the goal.
And the kicker, if you remember right, nobody ever drank pure wine back in the day.
Right.
They always diluted it with water anyway.
Anyway, so there'd be different ways to have a mobile version of this kind of thing going on. I get what you're saying. Interesting.
So you're like, what
So,
does this have to do with the dark one?
right.
So what I'm thinking is, what happens? And this is all theoretical, and like I said, this was just a topic that is off the cuff, right? So people try to tap in to the Book of the Dead, Comic Con, right?
Mm,
People have been trying to be necromancers, vampires, all this kind of supernatural type stuff, even in today's society. Who is
sure.
to say that this one individual,
Mm,
just through cosmic force, just happened to have the planets line up right, just said the right thing at the right time in the right place, didn't succeed once? And then the butterfly effect starts. And because he did that, I'm saying he as with a non-gender specific, and then he caused all of the stuff to happen.
So you're saying that the Dark One, from your point of view, might be a person
Mm-hmm.
that started this loop.
Yep.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
It just happens to be that one perfect time where he said the right incantation to the right thing, then tapped the source, absorbed the source, became the Dark One. Was human, became the Dark One. Or maybe
Mm.
even he was always Sharan, who knows?
Oh,
And then that loop cycle just keeps going, which would actually make more sense. But because if you're taking chicken or the egg,
right.
Sharan, if he starts as Sharan, and then eventually they split apart, and then they come back together, and they split apart and come back
Oh,
together in
that's,
in an
I
infinite
like
loop.
that. Oh, I like that. So he has both of his pieces together in the beginning.
And then splits
Right.
apart.
So maybe this guy feels like, maybe he always felt like he was of two minds or two personalities. Like, okay, I
Right?
can't make up my mind. Am I a chocolate kind of guy, or am I a
Mm-hmm.
vanilla kind of guy? I'll just get the swirl. I guess that was satisfying, but it was just not exactly what I was hoping for.
Right.
Yeah, no, I got you. So he taps into maybe this singular power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this would be, from your perspective, no one else in the world is magical at this point.
Right.
It, right? Everyone's just Joe average.
Yep.
It might be 1955.
Sure.
People are very boring. No offense to people from that time era, but just compared to today, it was a slower time.
Correct. Yep.
So, yeah, I don't think many people would
But
argue that.
the kicker is he wasn't supposed to be able to do it. There's
Mm,
supposed to be a limit of what you're supposed to be able to do, and he broke it. That's the
okay, so
important part,
that's
in my
that's
perspective.
interesting. So it's kind of like a Goku situation. Like
Yeah. So
he just,
go ahead. Yeah.
like, maybe it would be like, for all of y'all sci-fi people out there, Dr. Manhattan from the the Watchmen, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
What he was just a normal guy, right?
Yep.
And he did this experiment with this intrinsic field generator, which, by the way, silly, kind of silly thing, but basically, potentially, depending on what the heck they're talking about, it's talking about just moving atoms around, just being able to just move stuff around. So yeah, that kind of works for what Dr. Manhattan does. So
The Hulk.
what happened? Well,
Mhm.
even the Hulk at this point is
Yep.
that strong, right? But Dr. Manhattan specifically, he reassembled himself, right?
Yep.
And we see later on in the TV series that he doesn't have to be blue. He can just look like a normal human. So at any rate, what am I getting to here? Ah, yeah. So it could have been that he was just a completely normal dude. What do you think about that idea?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
normal dude that liked to tap into some like mystical powers.
And was it mystical? Was it science? Could it have been either one? Could it have
Both.
been like a Thor situation where it's like Asgard, magic and science, it's so beyond you, it doesn't really matter what we're
Right.
talking about? Mm. So, from your
Yep.
point of view, this is kind of like an Age of Legends situation then?
Yeah, it would make sense.
Okay.
Even before,
Okay.
even maybe even predating that.
Well, what I mean is this a time of immense progress of humanity? Is it a time of peace? Is it a time of
Doesn't matter.
not, well, it does because
Remember,
you
it's an
see,
infinite loop, right?
not yet. Not if you said that he's creating this loop when
I
he
see. I see
became,
what you mean. So you're saying, when did that loop start? Ah, who knows?
because it makes sense to me in this way that you can't, you can't start infinity and have it be infinitely large, but you can start a finite loop that goes on forever. That's fine. So I like the idea very much, Theo, that time was linear at some point,
Mm-hmm.
but the Dark One,
Broke
oh,
it.
whoever he was, he committed this great sin and he looped us into this, well, the
Time loop.
Rand people, yeah,
Yeah.
in this time loop where when people die, they just eventually come back and it just
Yep.
starts over and over again and again and again, right?
Yep.
So I really like that. So let's stick with that. So sticking with that, it is important that before the loop, what time the period they're in, right? Because if we're talking about a technologically advanced society, then we're talking about, well, he somehow did something like a Dr. Manhattan. Or if we're talking about a technologically primitive society, we're talking about something more mystical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, uh, who knows? Like maybe he did an incantation, like you said, but at that moment, like a miniature quasar or black hole swept through time and space, and that's what caused the loop, and that's what fed this immense power to him from another universe, or whatever the case may be. Um, yeah, no, I like that, or straight up blood magic, like whatever it was.
So here's a little kicker.
Mm.
What happens if it was both? What
So
happens if
how?
the technological society was crazy, crazy advanced,
Mhm.
super advanced,
Yeah.
and then this person's like, look at this old ass book.
Oh, I see what
Huh.
you mean. Yeah, yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, I can't believe they believed all this. Haka baka laka daka, and then kabam, all of a sudden
Right.
poof.
Oh, yeah, like Army of Darkness kind of situation.
Right?
Plateau, Veratu, Nikto, and then the gates of hell open up kind of thing.
Right.
But if that's the case, is it really the beginning at that point? Because now you're saying, no, and this is fine. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is,
Oh.
but now if you look at that angle, you're saying there's some kind of external entity now, not just an external power source.
Well, it's the external source. The person did the incantation to tap that source.
Right. Well, you see, what I mean to say is, in the analogy, and maybe this is just, I'm not making the right analogy to connect the dots, but you're kind of like knocking on a door, and that implies that someone's on the other side to open it.
Depends on how you want to consider what the power is, what the power source is. Depends on what he's trying to tap. Is what he's always trying to tap always there? Or did the tap cause the power?
So like it's kind of like starting this infinite loop. Well, the energy for it is actually coming from the future that is not going to happen now, or whatever.
Right.
Just it all the cause is the
It
effect,
is the
kind of.
effect. It's the
Yeah,
paradox.
it's all right. Yeah, so no, I think I understand what you're trying to
Hence,
say. Hmm.
why it's always looping.
So,
Because you can't
and
stop the
that's the
paradox.
mm,
Because
right.
once
Okay.
it started, because you weren't supposed to ever start it, but you did,
Yeah.
therefore, that's the consequence.
Okay. So yes, I like that. So the gist of it we're going with is this was a person. They started this wheel a turning,
Mm-hmm.
and as a consequence to that, it loops.
Right.
And for that very reason, we know that it goes on forever. It's just because of this kind of paradox of, well, how did this start, or how does it keep going rather? Well, once it started, it borrowed energy in this certain way, and now it's kind of like reverse causality. Like when you rewind a football game, you know that the score is going to go back to 0-0, you know.
Right.
Like you can predict things perfectly when time is flowing backwards. I won't get too metaphysical, but I really like these ideas. So now, here's the next question. Did the Dark One, in this instance, no matter how he came about it, we have one other decision to make here. Did he start out benevolent, or neutral? Good,
Hmm.
bad, or ugly?
If I had my druthers, I would say neutral.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, and that's because of your theory that he started out like a Shaitan and Rand mixed together in one body.
Right.
Mm,
And so I think he had it, but then he tapped it, and then kaboom, it happened. But I don't think he meant for it to go bad or good. I just think that he was just trying to do it. Does that make sense?
okay. So
So by
this ga-
doing it, he's like, you know what?
mm,
I think I can actually make this work. Or maybe just thought it was a game. Like, psh, I'm gonna
right.
say these words or whatever. It's not gonna matter anyway. Candyman, Candyman, Candyman,
Yeah.
and or Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice to make it a little more funny.
Yeah, there you go.
But
I like that.
you do it, and then there's consequences for your actions. I don't
Most
think
definitely.
that this individual thought there was going to be consequence for the action because he didn't
Okay,
think
I
that
like
what
that.
the action he was doing was going to do anything. I think it was
So,
accidental.
so I like that. So my next follow-up question is going to be, when does he become two people? When does that happen? No, actually, let me actually preface that with this. Is the power that he accesses, is it absolute? Or is it limited in some way, but just in our limited perspective, it seems absolute?
So I think it's both. I think it's like a Green Lantern, right? How do you get your ring? Cool, you can recharge it and stuff, but what can you develop out of that? It's just whatever you think of. So
So
I think the
it's
limitation is yourself.
is your imagination, so to speak, kind of.
Correct.
Okay.
So I think
Okay.
that the power itself is unlimited.
So
But
there's
I
no,
think we limit it by our mode of thought,
but
by
there's
our
no
own
out,
thought process.
but there's no outside force limiting it.
No.
It would, okay, I like that. Okay, cool. So it's very much kind of like passing the mantle. Like, so at that point, he kind of, this figure, he or she really takes control of the whole power of
Hmm.
the universe, really, at that point.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, like almost I'm gonna say Galactus because he's not quite, but it's like a supreme being type individual.
Yeah, like Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet and all the Infinity Stones.
Right.
But he's not a jerk.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And then you
So
can say,
yeah.
well, how did all of these magic weavers come? Well, once he started the reaction, it'd take time for the person to acclimate, try little things here and there, and then was like, maybe I can just give that something to somebody, give that to somebody. Doesn't that sound like almost like Judeo-Christian kind of thing?
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
So or even I'm gonna say this, like he could have said, "Oh, well, I'm going to elevate these 12 people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this will
Also
be
sounds very biblical, doesn't it?
very biblical, but also very Greek mythos, right?
Mm-hmm.
These 12 appointed, um,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Individuals
yep, this is the head honcho, this is his wife, all of
down the
that.
line.
This
Correct.
is the main, warrior for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason, and etc. So, no, I could see that. So in this case, is the Dark One, I think we actually did a video of this. Could this guy also be Uranus then?
Exactly.
Uranus.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. All right. All right.
You saw where I
I
was
like
going with
that.
that one.
Yeah, I like that very much. So okay. So this is like even like so this is like kind of like, what if this is how it started as a human ascending up to this and
Mm-hmm.
literally starting the pantheon from that point on.
Now
And
here's the ever bigger kicker.
mm,
What happens if he never did it?
what happens if he never started the loop?
Exactly.
Well,
Or does the loop always happen?
or does the well
That's the
then
paradox.
would there be a bigger loop within that the wheel of time resides within?
Right.
Sure, that could be right.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that someday within the wheel of time someone starts looping within the wheel of time, I guess.
Right?
Or there might be some metaphysical reason that the wheel of time is the only loop.
Who knows?
We know that there are other things outside of the time stream of wheel of time. It's the foxy and the snaky folk,
Right. So we know
and,
that there's
and
other beings.
mhm, and they live in other planes of existence for sure. Um, and there's the ogre, and they came out of a book. Literally, they came out of a book in that series, a magical book, but a book.
It had to come
So
from somewhere.
right, exactly. So I'm liking what you're saying. So here's the scenario. So maybe he gives a big chunk of his power for, it's too much for him to handle or whatever.
I think he
He
gave.
just
I don't think it's too much for him to handle because I'm talking eons of
mm,
learning how to do his craft.
oh, I see what you
And
mean.
I think he anoints some people because maybe they're like, dang, all of a sudden starts praying to him because religion, right? This being has to exist. That's him. They invoke him. This is after millennia. And he's like, huh, you know what? You're actually pretty worthy. I'm going to give you access to this power. You are also
Mm,
worthy. Access to the power.
right, right, right.
So I think the 12 that he anointed, aka the Forsaken, which they become, were once anointed with
So
the
the
one.
Forsaken being anointed as the chosen would be a shadow of this original.
Bingo. Because they flip too.
be- Right. Oh yeah. No.
Because
Good point.
what we said before, if you're a hero
Mm,
long enough, you become the villain.
sure. Yeah. No, I like this. So these. So at this point, there's obviously a need for this. Like he's tired of hearing these prayers, maybe, and I'm being kind of loose here, but and he goes, you know what? I'm gonna anoint these 12 people to take care of the problems on Earth,
Yeah. Middle managers.
middle managers, and I'm gonna now go away and leave me alone. I'm
Yep.
going off to meditate,
Yep.
which is all I do because, yeah, 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 I like that. So then now let's end on this, okay? And we can take our time on this, but we've gone over quite a range of topics already.
Right?
So to rein it in a little bit, I'm gonna bring you back to what I wanted to ask. So when does he split, or she? When does this one entity realize that there's an inner conflict that cannot be resolved, and physically becomes two different beings?
So what I'm thinking is, this is going to get freaky, man. I don't think they're ever separated.
So it's like an illusion.
Yes. I think that they are, and I've said this before in early parts of the series, that I think the Dark One and the Dragon are infinitely looped together. because I think
Yeah.
like I said, I think they always started out as one, and then
Right.
over time, everybody's got that, little conscious guy here, little conscious guy here, and they talk to each other in your head, and you're like, I'll do a good thing today. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to cheat on my diet though.
Well, I see what you mean.
And you kind of go back and forth and back and forth, and hey, you know what? I got all the juice in the universe. I can do whatever the hell I want. Poof. I'm not going to have the good guy on my side anymore, or the good guy on my side anymore, whatever. And I think he just kind of snapped his finger because he got bored. Because after
So what?
millennia, you're like, yeah, whatever. Let's test this out.
So,
Oops.
so he did it. He just did it to himself.
Yeah,
But in that case, though,
but
you're
he's
gonna
still
press your-
linked.
He's still linked. Okay, but it's not. There, there's no
So
way
Derek, let me put
for
it this
him
way.
to
I'm
know.
gonna pose another question for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Wheel of Time literary, and this is not theoretical anything. This is Wheel of Time knowledge stuff for
Okay.
you.
Oh gosh. Oh no. Go ahead.
Is the dragon the only one that can seal the Dark One once he starts to come out?
As far as we know, yes.
Is the dragon the only one that's supposed to be there at the last battle? As in fighting him like one-on-one, quote-unquote.
As far as we know, yes.
They'll have their armies and stuff, but that's fine.
I mean, they
but
all have their armories, and he has his people supporting him right up to the very end. But when it comes down to it, it's Morden and Rand. Spoiler alert. And it
Duking
has
it
to be
out.
a one-on-one situation. It
Right.
has to be.
So, we know at the end, after the brawl,
Mm.
Rand goes,
Mm.
pops him back in the face, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And now they're back together as one.
For
so
sure.
I think that is the loop.
Mm.
That is the loop. So the absorption is them coming back together as one, but you can't undo the initial sin, so to speak, of breaking the plane. So that's going to be consistent. But he's back into one, and then we've had this discussion before where, well, he's got access, but I'm the keyhole. Kind
Right.
of give and take, give and take, give,
Yeah,
give, and,
yes.
and it amps,
Yeah.
amps, and then
Mhm.
something goes a little awry, one side or the other, and then pat, they split apart again. And
Got
then the
it,
whole mega loop starts, but again, the loop, bam, intersects with
So,
them at the last battle.
There is something
again.
we're missing. I like it, and I'm sorry I jumped in a little bit.
No,
too
if you
quick.
got something to add, go for it.
There is something we're missing here. There has to be a time where the power that he assigns to mankind splits into being just male on one half and just female on the other half. And at this point, are we saying he's given enough of his power to humanity that it's 50-50? Like humanity has half of the power and this Dark One entity has the other half?
That's what I would say, because
Okay.
or maybe even 49.99%
Goes to the Olympians, I'm
Yep.
guessing.
and then
Yeah.
the 50.00001 goes to humanity, and that's what does the taint.
So he has tie-breaking privileges, is what you're basically
But he lost
saying.
it in a way,
Well,
and that's when the split happens because humanity, being jerks that we are,
oh, I see what you're saying.
we're a little arrogant, had our little hubris.
Well, you know when it would have happened, Theo? It would have happened right after the Dark One split from the Dragon, because
Right.
then humanity would have double the power of either one of them.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, of course.
And then
Of
because
course.
of the arrogance, it split. And then due to more arrogance, I can just take this guy out. I don't need the women folk. Poof.
Oh,
and then
dude.
kabam.
Well, dude, and maybe this is what you were just saying, and it took me a second to process it. Think about this. If the Dragon and the Dark One split, that would be maybe a chicken and the egg scenario as to why the men and women would have to split, because they'd all have to be even in some way yet again.
Right.
Because the Dragon has to be able to manipulate at least half of the Dark One's power
Right.
at some point.
At some point.
Now, yeah. So now, when we come to the Wheel of Time, it appears that we come to a creature that is paradoxically not both the dragon and the dark one, but yet has all of the energy of both creatures. Like he has
Mm-hmm.
already won, he already defeated the dragon, I guess. So he has everything. He holds all the cards, right?
Yep.
So, okay, I think I get what you're saying. I like it a lot.
It's out
So
there.
no,
I'm
it is
not
out
gonna,
there.
I'm not going to deny that part.
But so you do agree though that even if they're connected in some weird way, they did get two physically different bodies. We're not talking about a hologram here, right?
No, it's two real bodies. Right.
It's two real bodies with two, for lack of a better, if you want to say it's a Horcrux kind of situation.
Exactly.
Fine.
Yep.
But they're different at this point.
Correct.
Okay. Very good. Very
Yep.
good. And then either as a punishment for breaking into two entities, or as a result, the men and the women's power had to split off. And eventually, we're generations later, you started off with, okay, well, these are the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
They had this amazing power, but you know what? It went to their heads and they're nasty. So the Olympians were their kids,
Right.
and they didn't have as much power, but there was way more than them, so they
Right.
took over, and so on and so on, right?
Yep.
All right.
Exactly.
No, that's very good. I like that a lot. I think we should end it there with,
I do too.
yeah, the
'Cause
dark one
we,
was
we
a
have a,
human.
we have a lot of topics we opened up on this one.
No, most definitely. So the dark one was a human, and Shy Rand was who he was.
Correct.
All right, take us out,
Deep
my friend.
stuff, man. All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed our show. It was definitely an interesting discussion. Like I said, this one was one that we thought of like literally about 5 minutes before we copped on the show. We're just like, I was like, dang, this is actually really cool. We'll just put this live. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, cool. Because especially if you really did, then we're probably going to talk about this next few episodes would be my guess. And then we'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll throw in some Lord of the Rings as I watch it. I'm sure Derek's going to watch it eventually too. But it's actually pretty good. So at least the first 2 episodes.
And also, after our many discussions of the Iliad, we plan to eventually revisit
Yep.
Apollo's link to the series. So stay tuned for that as well.
All right, everybody. If you're in the U.S., have a good Labor Day tomorrow, a.k.a. chill. Have your one day off a year. And